Michelle Gladieux, the author of Communicate with Courage, Taking Risks to Overcome the Four Hidden Challenges, is going to be a guest on our show today. This is for me, it's a topic that I've been interested in for such a long time. And actually, communication is my major in college. And when I say communication, I mean human communication. So the way that we speak to one another, verbally and non-verbally, rhetoric, sitting in a group, small group communication. So I don't mean like mass media and journalism. And Michelle's expertise is communicating with courage, and she has been gracious enough to put all of her pro tips, which we'll talk about what those are, in this interview, into book form for us to make this actionable and something that we can practice in our daily lives and improve our communication style and improve our life overall. I'm really looking forward to talking about fear and hiding from fear and defining what it means to, communicate with courage and rationalize and all those things that we deal with when we're approaching communication with ourselves and others. So enjoy the show. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Outside the Studio. We have a very special guest here today, Michelle Gladieux. She's the author of Communicate with Courage. I'm holding the book if you are watching on YouTube. This is Communicate with Courage, Taking Risks to Overcome the Four Hidden Challenges. And we will talk about what those four hidden challenges are. But first, let me introduce to you Michelle. She's the president of Gladieux Consulting. It's a Midwest-based team known for top-notch design and presentation of seminars in communication and leadership topics around the U.S. She provides executive coaching and facilitates strategic planning for clients in diverse industries, in governments, at nonprofits, and in academia. She has 18 years of collegiate teaching experience at 3 universities in her home state of Indiana, accepting her first adjunct faculty position at age 23. I could go on and on about this,
That's enough.
Michelle.
That's enough.
You're like, but first of all, whoa, that is quite the list. I mean, that's quite the list of accolades. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. How are you today?
For sure. I'm thrilled to be here. We had a reschedule. So a while ago, I started looking at your work and listening to your podcasts. And I want to congratulate you on 5 years of Outside the Studio. That's amazing. And I'm glad that we both love communication. I saw your degree in comm.
Yeah.
Great
I was
thing
just
to study.
explaining that, and I don't know that everyone knows this. I feel like I always have to qualify that the degree in communication is human communication. It's not mass media communications, such as journalism and things of that nature. But really what my college degree prepared me for was, one-on-one communication, small group communication, public speaking, rhetoric, things of that nature, nonverbal communication. That one was fun. And so, Michelle and I were just discussing that. Well, I was saying to her that I was so excited to have this conversation because you're, a fellow, you study communication and you actually we can really get into the meat of what that means. I think we take it for granted, right?
Oh, I just wish every day I wish I was better at it. They say those who can't sometimes teach. And I think you and I have both become experts in our fields, but we've had long roads and we have a long road ahead. We'll never reach perfection, but we're going to keep striving. Apparently, we have kind of chosen our path here in helping others and in communicating. I thought it was really interesting that your health coaching practice focuses on what you say, bio-individuality. Mm-hmm. And when I read that, what you mean by that is each person has different needs for creating optimal whole body health. That really rung a bell. That really struck a chord with me because I of course believe that each person has different needs for creating optimal strategic communication to better their lives. And that's kind of what motivated me to lock myself in the office on nights and weekends and write this book over the last 4 years. Hallelujah, it's born.
Yeah, I'm so
It's here.
glad because, man, I feel like this could have been a textbook that I would have been so grateful for back in college. And I'm grateful for it now. So thank you for writing.
Sure. Yeah, I taught from a lot of textbooks that were nothing like this. They were not as colorful. They did not have personal stories. They had a lot of case studies, but they were not about real people. So they didn't really, I would skim them, and figure out what was going to be, what do we need to know here for the test? But those books didn't touch my heart. And I really did try to put my heart on each page here.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you did. Hey, so I have a question based on
Yeah.
what I heard you just say, what you pulled out of the health coaching, the bio-individual approach to health coaching. And I'm curious how you apply that to communication, because that has me thinking about different personality styles, such as like we label ourselves as introverted and extroverted. And so I'm trying to articulate this question
Yeah,
as I'm saying it.
sure.
Do you
Like, how
see
do I
where I'm
help
going with this?
individuals, or how do you
Yeah.
meet people that we do personality assessment? It's really important in our executive coaching process. And we use about 164 question multi-choice question survey. And then the client, in a few days after taking that, receives a 13 to 14 page report from us. Wow. And it covers like which of the four main personality styles are they exhibiting when they're relaxed versus under pressure. Do they change? Some people do, some don't. Degree of introversion or extroversion, motivators, the 5 conflict styles, which they're using most, decision-making style, problem-solving gifts. And it's interesting because every gift that is illuminated by any reliable personality assessment, there is a weakness wedded to it, because we tend to overuse our strengths, which creates some weaknesses in other areas. For example, the first time I took a really good personality assessment, the one we use today, was about 12 years ago. And it showed that of the 5 conflict styles, you can accommodate, compromise, collaborate, etc. I was using competing to the point of overusing it, like 70% of the time or something. I was trying to compete if there was a disagreement, which left no room for accommodation, very little room for compromise, etc. And that just hit me like a ton of bricks. I was thinking, well, that's clearly overuse of a strength. I'm a competitive, goal-oriented person. That's good. I can negotiate. That's good. More women need to learn to negotiate effectively. But it wasn't helping my personal relationships at all. And several ended because I'm a hard person to disagree with. And that's a big part of relationship building. So I can actually see myself maturing a little bit more every year as I have whittled down that competing score and tried to be more collaborative. And now it's down from like 68% competitive to 37%, which is still high. But I think I've learned some things as a communicator, like learn to admit when I'm wrong, learn to try to zip it and listen even when I disagree. I'm very aware of my strengths and weaknesses, and personality assessment helps me coach others, as well as sometimes talking to their coworkers, bosses, employees, people around them, or asking them, giving them the assignment to do what I write about in the book is the feedback challenge, which is go to a few people that know you well, right? And just say, hey, I have a homework assignment from a podcast, from a book, whatever you want to say. And the question is, what's something you like about communicating with me? And then what's something that you think I could do differently or better? And the name of the game is, no matter what that other human says to you or emails you or texts you back, whatever, however you might wish to get your feedback, you say, thank you, I'll think about this. That's it. Don't disagree, even though they might be wrong, or even if they're unkind in the way they give the feedback. You just say, thank you, I will think about this, and then get away from them so you can. And it's amazing what a gift that is. I do that annually. And a lot of the companies that we teach half day and different types of communication seminars. If we can have a 2-parter, that's the assignment often between part 1 and part 2.
Wow.
I was just at an auto plant today, listening to team leaders who came back after last week's half-day training in communication and leadership skills. And they had each gone to 12 coworkers, people at all levels of the organization, and asked that question and said it's homework from training. And then today was the presentation day, where each person told us their favorite piece of praise they received and their favorite piece of constructive criticism. So lots of laughs and lots of enjoyment of hearing what other people heard about themselves, both the positive and negative. And it really made me proud of everybody in the room because they were even willing to discuss that among peers. Communicating with courage for sure.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm thinking about the flip side of that too, that if somebody came to me with that question, it might be hard for me to articulate a very honest response about what they could do better in their communication style or what's challenging in that communication style. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, take some time. It would be good if the question asker, the person seeking feedback, would say, take a few days if you need to. When I've done that with more analytical introverted types, they've said, can I email you? And I said, sure. And then I received a thoughtfully produced paragraph about what they liked about my coaching, and another thoughtfully produced couple of sentences about what they thought I could do differently or better, but they wanted to remove themselves and go work on the wording away. So it's a great idea to let people respond only if they want to participate, which is a gift. And then, within a deadline, I usually say, like, if you could let me know by the end of the week. And then I might do one check-in with you, Tess, and might say, hey, I'm still interested if you have any feedback. And I've had folks say, Michelle, really, I don't right now. And I'll say, that's okay, anytime. Then 6 months later in a meeting, I've had a coworker say, we're talking and I interrupted, and she looked at me and said, that's it. And I said, what's it? She goes, there you go. The feedback challenge thing. That's what you can work on. You interrupt. And I was like, thank you. I'll think about that. I think you're right. Thank you. Is what I'm thinking. I think you're right. I just did. So just leave that door open. If you're the feedback, if you're the person giving the feedback, I would give you this tip. Statement of intention, or state your motive. Use a preamble. You could say something like, Michelle, if you wanted to give me the criticism that I interrupt, you could say, I know you're very passionate about your work and I love your energy, but sometimes that energy leads you to interrupt. So you're saying, I know you're doing your best, however, and that really brings my walls down a bit, because I know you see my intention and the best I'm trying to be. But great question. Use a preamble.
Yeah, that's so helpful. Thank you. I think of that compliment sandwich, the compliment, the feedback, or the constructive criticism, and then the closing positive.
That doesn't really hold up in research as helpful to people.
Is okay.
It doesn't. It was a very mid 80s, late to mid 90s thing that was taught in supervision skills and leadership skills and communication courses probably around the country. What ends up happening, the research has mostly found that people are confused. If the main point was, can you do this differently, please? Right? Or you've upset me in some way, and you couch it in, you come to work on time, and here's the real feedback. And also you're a brilliant designer or whatever. It's confusing. So probably better just to start with, I know you're doing your best, and I have some feedback for you. You could ask too. If someone's not inviting feedback, you could say, may I offer you some feedback or some notes about how I think you might do even better? If they're your employee, they'll probably say yes. If they're your friend or significant other, they can say no. So it's the art of the deal in a way. It's like how, and what's the trust between the two people? Do you seem safe? Have you in the past communicated in hurtful ways or in trust building ways? And if you've communicated in hurtful ways, there aren't going to be many people who want feedback from you. And that's something to start working on, today.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you clarifying that. That's helpful. I want to, there's some key points I want to hit, and I'm going to name them and try to bring myself back to them so I don't forget.
Ooh,
so I want to
organize us. Good.
Yeah. Let me give a summary. So I want to define courage, because I know you talk about it at length in the book in terms of what do we mean when we're communicating with courage, and how do we define that. And then I want to talk about the 4 parts of communication as you lay them out in the book. And I want to hit the subject of public speaking, because I'm passionate about that. I know you are too. And I think it's as it relates to fear and courage, such a huge button for so many of us. And then I think we'll see where we go for there. But can we start off by defining courage?
Yeah, I think of courage as something intangible. I can't I can't show it to you. I can't hold it in my hands or weigh it or measure it, but it's vital. And we have to find it within ourselves. No one else can find it for us in this lifetime. You can read a good book that can help. You can find a coach. You can use role models around you, have friends that really care and hold you accountable for being brave when you need to be brave. But it's a vital element of success that we have to find in ourselves. And no one else can do that work for us. It usually is we're alerted to the fact that we might need to summon our courage when we feel fear. So I look at fear as a good friend, like, oh, I'm nervous about this presentation. And so I'm feeling a little afraid. Okay, so fear is here. Fear is here. I will need to now summon my courage. And of course, there are many different examples in the book about how folks can do that, including overcoming some challenges that I think are hidden to most people. So that would bring us into the 4 hidden challenges whenever you're ready to talk about that.
Yeah,
But
let's dive into it.
It's an acceptance of risk for sure. And no matter where we are, no matter what our occupation or age, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, gender, identity, everybody can take baby steps towards courage. I think the things that get in our way each get a chapter in the book, Communicate with Courage. They are the following. I see folks, and myself too, hiding from risk. And hiding from risk is when we're afraid of exposing our real or supposed weaknesses. To summon courage, we have to decide what we value and then not let fear stop us when we see something that we value. So maybe I want to share something in a meeting. It's important to me, or a loved one is getting married and I want to do a toast. I'm scared as heck, but I stand up anyway because I value those 2 friends. And I know I want to do this toast or I'll regret it the rest of my life. So I'm going to do my best. So hiding from risk requires us to think about what we lose when we hang back. And then that pushes us to get in the game as a communicator. The second hidden challenge is defining to be right. I don't know if cussing is allowed on this show, but I'm going to say that that's when we're so damn sure. And a lot of us are so damn sure all the time that the way we see the world is the way the world is. And of course, we're putting way too much stock into our assumptions in that case. So where do we summon courage there? We have to summon courage, I guess, to test our assumptions, maybe check them out with people or see how other people experience the world by asking their opinion. And we can celebrate when we have the guts to admit that we were wrong, or perhaps that we had our blinders on and we didn't quite see things from other angles. That's defining to be right. The third is rationalizing the negative. This one really gets to me, bugs me when I see it in others, because I'm a dedicated optimist. I really try to put faith in positive outcomes and imagine what could go well. So I was a little nervous about this podcast, and then I dug into your biography, looked at your beautiful website, learned about you, and thought, well, shoot, we have a lot in common, and so that usually is a great way to make a friend, is to have some things in common. I bet the time's going to fly by and it's going to go smoothly. And so far, what I visualized is coming to pass. So when we rationalize the negative, we prevent ourselves from taking a chance, like to say a hard thing or to do some public speaking or to negotiate or ask for help or speak a conflict, face a conflict. I would ask our listeners and viewers to try to have courage to put faith in possible positive outcomes. Plus, it can be a real bummer to the people around you. It can sap their energy if you're constantly pointing out what could go wrong.
Yeah, okay. For sure.
The last one is, the last one is settling for good enough. It's satisficing. It's like, okay, you figured out to get by in this communication, the minimum requirement would be X. So you just do X. And I think that there's some occasions in our life where it's worth stretching beyond the minimum, because again, just getting by is a habit. And if we start looking at interactions as an opportunity for things to go right and a place that we could stretch ourselves, life really responds. You have you have more successful career or volunteerism. You get behind causes you believe in. You earn respect, sometimes more money, credibility. That final challenge, settling for good enough. I like to play a game when we do training. And recently in customer communication skills training, I asked a large auditorium full of folks. The training was mastering internal and external communication, which is kind of a joke because you don't leave a half-day seminar master of anything, but it's a good title, right? Right. We're getting there. We're stepping. And I said, let's play the 1% game. Everybody think of a communication that you were involved in today before you came here to this seminar. regular stuff. You answered an email, you talked to a coworker on video or in the hallway, regular stuff, maybe a customer question. And now grab a piece of scrap paper, think of a way that you could have improved your side of the interaction by 1%. I always picture like, this is our dance space. This is their dance space. We're interacting in our space. So look at yourself, just 1%. How could you have polished up that communication today, that one interaction? And I jotted down, they passed the scrap paper up and I threw it in my briefcase and then dumped the briefcase on the dining room table when I got home and started looking through. I wrote a couple down that I'll share. And I think we're going to hear ourselves. Someone said, I could have sounded more confident. Another person said, I think I sounded a little arrogant. Two sides, two sides of the same coin. I could have just let it go because it was a little thing. I could have gathered the other person's opinion first. I could have listened longer to diffuse frustration. I could have reread my email before I hit send. I could have not interrupted, but did. I could have used their name, but forgot. I could have used their name, but didn't know how to pronounce it and didn't ask. I could have thanked the person for their time. I could have followed up, but didn't. I could have avoided saying something rudely because I was stressed. I could have prepared before I made the call, got to the point faster, slowed my roll to explain things better. And then my personal favorite was the scrap piece of paper that said, I could have picked up the call sounding like I cared. Very honest. Awesome. And I just picked the number 1%, Tessa, because I think ego gets involved. If I said, how could you have done something 90% better? If that, dang. But 1%, especially often executives, people with high positional power, have pretty healthy egos, and they don't like sometimes to look at how they could be better. So I'm just calling it the 1% exercise. It's an example of one of the exercises in the back of the book in each chapter.
Oh, that's so.
There you go. 4 hidden challenges.
Cool.
Some of my employees, coworkers, of course, they've been reading the book in edits for a couple of years because we wanted a tight, powerful, hold the reader close to the page kind of book. And they came back and said, well, I just read each chapter about the hidden challenges, and I think I have all 4. And I said, I do too. They come and go at different times. Just when you've got one beat, then there'll be a different one that comes up as we're always changing and growing and sometimes regressing, sometimes evolving, as you well know, through your health coaching practice. So yeah, they're going to come and go. I just think it would be better if we bring them out from the peripheral and we just face them so we could take baby steps towards healing.
Yeah. I mean, knowledge is power, right? And then you can choose. Do I want to continue to do this? Is this helpful? Is it healthy? Is it something that I want in my life?
Ooh, that's good. Do I want to continue to do this? Is it helpful? Is it healthy? Do I want it in my life?
Yeah.
Wait, I'm going to write that down.
Okay.
Book 2.
Yeah.
I will quote you. Just kidding.
Do.
I don't want to write another book anytime really soon. Really, that was a lot.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you about that because I loved what you said at the very beginning. This is the preface.
Okay.
And I love that you quoted Anais Nin. And then the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk to bloom. And you're talking about like the procrastination. I think you're talking specifically about the procrastination to start this book. And, I've said this one to myself. I avoided clear deadlines other than before I'm 50, starting in my 20s. So I think my question around this is, it's that first hidden challenge, it's like we have to take a step, even though we're scared. In the face of fear, we still have to take a step forward and take some sort of action, right? So I think the question is like, my question is always something along the lines of, does the desire have to be louder than the fear to be able to make that step?
I think yes, especially if you are trying to motivate yourself and you don't have, for example, a supervisor saying, this is your project. If you want a job, do this. So I was busy with writing workbooks and articles and blog posts and all kinds of things, but I wasn't yet committing to the book, and nobody could make me but me. So that procrastination went on a long time. And truthfully, I think getting older helps because more and more, I start to realize like we are just not here for a very long time on this planet. Even if we live to be a ripe old age, it still goes by quickly. And I had finally had coached thousands of people for thousands and thousands of hours. And I felt like I had now kind of got a 30,000-foot view of some of these obstacles that get in our way. So it seemed like I think I'll start now. Also, as an extrovert, I was a little bit hesitant because probably a lot hesitant. It sounded lonely. Writing is lonely. And I asked one of my coworkers, will you hold me accountable? And I'll pay you for your time. Will you meet with me once a week or so? Let's do a Sunday meeting and I'll show you what I've written and you react. Thumbs up, thumbs down, more of this, less of that. And he's a very good writer, Tim Jones, very good editor. And ended up being there for me in the crux of it. I was quote unquote vacationing in Florida, but the deadline was approaching and he flew down from Louisville to sit with me at that kitchen table and go through the changes that I needed to make to each chapter. So he's hopefully well thanked in the book. One of my favorite parts of the book to write was the gratitude section, for sure. And even then, you can't cover it all because we're all standing on everybody else's shoulders who we've watched communicate for good or bad. But he deserves a big shout out. And I think I deserve a shout out, Tessa, because I figured out, as extroverted as I am, and according to personality assessment, that extroversion is pretty high. I get energy from things like this discussion we're having. I do not get energy from closing this door and hanging out in here all weekend by myself.
Yeah.
So I needed light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I will see you Sunday at 10 a.m. and I will have that chapter done.
Yeah. Oh,
It
that's
worked.
so smart. Yeah. I mean, because I've worked with writing coaches and stuff before, but there wasn't some sort of external deadline. It was, I mean, I was just purely relying on willpower and it fizzled out. So I think it's important to understand what your external factors are in terms of how far is inspiration really going to take me and how bad do I want this?
You give things up to pursue your goals. You give things up. I was a dog mom, 2 dogs. And during that time, because of health reasons and age, you had to euthanize both of them around the same time. And I still think, I miss them every day. And I still think, ooh, all those hours, how many more walks could we have had? You must choose. You must choose. But I thought this was going to be worth it. And so far, it certainly has been, because I'm hearing from some people that it's impacting their life. I got an email yesterday from a young woman in economic development here. And I work and live in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and she works in our Chamber of Commerce. And I went to do a book talk with her team of 20 yesterday, and that went great. And then after, I got an email later in the day saying she enjoyed the book talk, but also she wanted me to know that because she was reading the book with her team in the last few months, along that same time, her best friend passed away. Her best friend, a 22-year-old, passed away. And the best friend's mom said, would you please deliver a eulogy? And she said, before having this book in hand and these tools, I would have declined. But I thought, well, seems like the timing is right here. I'll use some of the things I'm picking up and push myself to summon courage. And she gave the eulogy, did a beautiful job, and now will not regret that. She will have that sharing of the relationship she had with her beautiful friend forever.
Yeah.
Talk about public speaking. Isn't
Yeah,
that one of the hardest?
Oh my gosh. Well, and it's definitely a topic I want to dive into as someone who kind of unwittingly chose a career in public speaking. I didn't really realize I was doing that. I love this question, though, that your publicist gave me this question. Many people are afraid of speaking in front of an audience. How do you advise people to start the journey toward enjoyable public speaking? How do we do that?
Let's get really clear. Let's each get really clear that anywhere we go, from birth to death, we are no more or no less important or valuable than any other human. And once we start to believe that we're equally valuable, and we face an audience of folks who are equally valuable and deserving of respect and love, then we are showing up to speak to people who are just like us in that basic human right of respect. They're not better than us. They might know more than us. They might make more than us. But also, their butt is in the seat. and you're the person in front of the group. It reminds me of when I go to a wedding or a nightclub or something, and there's people dancing, and then there are people watching the people dancing. I never worry about it. I don't even need to have 2 drinks to get up and dance, usually, because I'm on the dance floor, folks. So if you want to sit over there and make fun of me doing the Pee Wee Herman, which is one of my favorite silly dance moves to do, go for it. But I'm in the game, right? I'm actually swimming in this pool, and you're in a lawn chair next to it. So keep that in mind too. You're the one with the courage to be in the game as a public speaker. So if there are any haters, and there rarely are many haters, let them hate. But in most audiences, everybody is rooting for us because, as you well know, Tessa, especially empathic folks, you can feel how the person speaking to you feels. And if you sense they are not enjoying it and don't want to be there, you feel a little sick inside too. So I try to give myself permission to show up as an equally valuable human. Remember, I'm the one on this dance floor or in the pool, and they're not dancing or swimming. I'm the one that's trying to do this for all of us. And then I remember they're really probably rooting for me because it feels better to them to see me enjoy the experience than to see me maybe even announce. I really cringe when people who are speaking in public say, "Oh God, I wish I didn't have to do this. I'm a terrible public speaker. I'm so scared." I absolutely identify, but let's keep those things secret, or let's say that to a friend before we do the speaking. And then when we're speaking, go for it and don't worry so much about the fear. Just do your best. So those are some things I have in my head.
Well, and you
I
do a
have
lot of public speaking in your career. Is there any sort of
yeah.
ritual or way that you
Ooh,
prepare
ritual.
yourself before you get up in front of
Yes,
the group?
there is. I make really sure that I am excited about the topic, that I have enthusiasm for whatever I'm about to address, whatever the topic is. And I might be going to teach harassment and bias prevention for the 100th time that year, or perhaps I'm doing a leadership and communication skills course for supervisors, and it's the 50th time that quarter that I'm doing that it's always different. We always customize, which is great. So we keep it fresh because we do audience analysis. But I make sure that I am truly glad that I'm the person who gets to do it, or I find somebody else to do it. And that has worked well through thousands of presentations. Sometimes I will do a meditation or a prayer asking whatever higher power there is to give me an assist here and help me deliver something that can help someone else. And that's always interesting when I remember to do that. Sometimes I'll make up an example off the top of my head. Recently, I was teaching conflict management, and I said, let's pretend I'm not a mom, but let's pretend that you have a 16-year-old who really wants to start driving, but you don't think your child is responsible enough, and it's causing a lot of problems at home. This, I thought, was just off the top of my head. We go through how to analyze both parties' position and how that parent in this example might approach the teenager. I just threw something out there. There was a couple hundred people. I figured somebody's got teenagers, which means you have conflict from what I hear from human parents of human kids, you know. And a lady came up to me afterwards, kind of like teary-eyed. She's like, that is happening. And then you said, and let's say his name is Paul, and his name is Paul. And I thought, oh my gosh, how did you know? I said, truly, that was just luck. I didn't know. She just looked shocked, and I'm going to try that. I'm going to go home and try some of those things. And I said, good luck. You could agree to disagree, but I hope you can get on the same page of, we still have to live together. We still love each other. Boy, this is hard for us right now. But what she took away from that was she was going to name how he might feel. She was going to work on empathy and say that she understood that he feels embarrassed to be the only person in his friend group not yet allowed to drive. And she said, I haven't at all said anything about how he feels, only that he doesn't deserve it yet.
Oh, it's so powerful.
So anyway, yeah, I think a ritual could be, whatever you align with, whatever value or power you align with. How about that? How about saying, hey, a little helping hand here. And hey, at the end of the day, you're done with that presentation. No matter what goes wrong, think about what remains the same that you're grateful for. So I'm lucky. I still have a fridge full of food when I get home. I have a roof over my head. I have heat. I have friends that will help me laugh about my mistakes or who will commiserate with me if I really mess up when I'm speaking.
Yeah.
I can stop and start again. I can say, I'm having a hard time thinking of how to say that. And then I throw it to the audience. Help me find my words here. How would you say it? And there are hands popping up everywhere. Oh, you mean this, you mean that. Maybe let the audience help you a little bit.
I love
These
that.
are things that help me.
Yeah. I'm in the middle of leading a teacher training, and it's a lot of speaking all the time, all day. It's like, a full weekend's worth of speaking and all of these terms, anatomical and, very technical, complex things that I'm teaching about. And oftentimes I feel myself getting tongue-tied. And that's I love that, throwing it out to the audience and asking for students or people in the audience to help you out. I'm wondering if you're saying that people raise their hands and willingly throw things out. Are you ever met with kind of like silence?
Mm-hmm. Sure. And in that case, I will say, well, maybe I'm asking for questions. So we've covered 6 steps to delegation for supervisors in various organizations. And now I'm asking, can you give us an example of one employee in one stretch task that you might like to try this with? Or I'm discussing conflict and I'm looking for an example of a conflict that's happening in someone's life. Don't name any names, but give me the general story and then let's work through it together. Crickets, right? So one thing I've learned to do is wait.
Mm-hmm.
Harder for women, in my observation, harder for people who are highly verbal, harder when you're the one standing there looking at them and they're looking at you. Hang on though, smile, look into people's eyes, wait. Sometimes I will see in folks' eyes, and this could be by video or in person, sort of like give me sort of a sly look like, oh, I have an example. And I never put anyone on the spot. I really try never to do that, but I might say, Tessa, did you think of something? An invitation. And that way you can say, no. Or but the face usually gives me an idea. And then if still nothing, I'll say, okay, well, one of the most frequent examples of conflict in the workplace that we get is, and I'll just throw out my own answer. Or, a question, I'm asking for questions and not getting any. What could I explain better? What questions do you have? Nothing. After about 60 seconds, which is longer than you might think, of waiting, right? That was 10. So imagine that times 6. I'll say, no problem. One of the most common questions I get is, but what if you're just too angry to talk to the person right then? And then what I would share is, so I ask myself a question and then I answer my own question. And what typically happens is then the adult participants start to respond and ask questions and talk because it's like someone broke the ice. Mm-hmm. They almost don't realize I just asked myself a question and answered it. Now it's their turn, but it somehow relaxes them a bit. Yeah. So try silence. Yeah. And then try asking yourself a question or giving an example, or get very specific. Like we're looking for an example of conflict. Has anyone had a debate recently with a significant other or romantic partner? And what was it about? Just generally. Come on, somebody had an argument last weekend. Somebody's going to say loading the dishwasher, or whether to take a vacation, or how to discipline this child, or how to motivate our child. Or I will say, in the workplace, what frustrates or annoys you sometimes about working with the other people you work with? No names, please. But what's challenging for you? Is it, and then I might give multiple choice. When credit is not given where credit is due, when you're interrupted, when you're not invited to share your opinion, when someone assumes that they think they know and they don't know about your job. And as I run down common human conflict, but you could apply this to your career, someone's going to say, it's not this, it's that. Right? Or it is that. What do we do about that? Yeah. Oh, great questions. So great. I love that. Great questions that you're bringing to this interview. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I love your answers. This is so fun. Well, I want to talk about risk because we are, in essence, talking about risk. We're talking about public speaking. We're talking about having hard conversations. We're talking about conflict. I mean, that feels risky, right? And
Right.
these are things that it seems like you encourage people to do, but I know there's some things in the book that you think are risks that are not worth taking. Um, and maybe I'm not phrasing that right, but do you know what I mean? And can you
Yeah,
explain this?
I do know what you mean. And the risk's not worth taking. Let's see. Some of those that I write about are letting others define you. So I don't want our listeners to spend a lot of time ruminating on what will people think if,
Mm.
because again, perhaps what's more important is what do you think of you? So ditch the personality contest. Let your weird light shine. Be yourself. Nobody else is here to deliver the same messages on this earth as you are. And if you're rejected, Tess and I will be your friends. You do it's I don't say that often to coaching clients. If you say the hard thing and then say good morning to the person the next day and they say, and they won't speak to you, call me. Sometimes doing the right thing means going out on a limb a little bit. Risk is engaging in a new mindset or behavior with no guarantee of what the result will be, but we know for sure we can't live to please others and be at the top of our game as communicators.
Mhm.
Some of the other risks not worth taking include, let's see, I talk about complaining and or nagging, as it's sometimes called. And I was just a few months ago when I was writing the book, and I put it in the book, my significant other called me out on that. And so I was like, oh, I'm working so many hours, and just I wasn't a really happy person. And I think it had to do with all the extra hours of book writing, to be honest, and editing. It was just a lot, full-time job plus other things going on, some health things. And he called me out on it, and I tried to debate it, and I kind of tried to deny it, but I heard him and I knew that he was right. And then I left for a coaching appointment with a hospital executive, and I was talking to the hospital executive, and I said, give me some ideas of how things are going this month for you. What's going well, what's frustrating? And the coaching client told me some great things that were happening with their team, but also said frustrating is my employees are doing a lot of complaining. And here's what I said: same day that I was called out on it, I said, oh, isn't that the worst? It's such a drain on your energy to be around someone who's complaining all the time. Yes, I heard myself. So, there are some behaviors that are dysfunctional that aren't, you could take the risk that others will tolerate it forever, but they may not. And so that chapter was a fun one to write. Risks not worth taking. Bullshitting, usually not a great risk worth taking. Certainly a risk, especially if you're public speaking and you get a question you can't answer. You might be tempted to BS and kind of fake your way through an answer. I recommend everybody try that at least once. It feels so terrible. You just don't want to do it twice. You just don't want to do it twice. It's like a hand on a hot stove, like, oh, that, anything but that. So instead of that risk, you could throw the question back to the audience or back to the people in the meeting. Hey, that's a great question. I want to find out what our participants today think. What would you say about that?
Mhm.
Hands might go up. You could also put it on a whiteboard or table it and say, let me research that and get back to you, and then really do that. There are a lot of things you can do, but the best thing is to admit that you don't know when you don't know. So I don't really want people to read the book and then just go out willy-nilly and shoot from the hip and take all kinds of chances. I don't want people getting themselves fired because they're so direct about the feedback they give. There's counsel in the book about how to give real feedback or give your opinion, get your voice heard diplomatically is the pro move.
Yeah, diplomatically.
Diplomatically,
That's such a
diplomatically.
skill. Yeah. Oh, I mean, I feel like it's such a skill that it seems like some people naturally have this ability to communicate diplomatically, and perhaps I'm just have my rose-colored glasses on when I look at people with that skill, and it's something that they've honed and practiced over a lifetime. But it seems like things can come out so easily for some people and not so easily for others. Like you're saying, you're an extrovert, so you have an inclination maybe to draw energy from conversation with others, so you're more practiced at it, and maybe it sounds more natural versus somebody who's more introverted, who doesn't draw energy from one-on-one communication or being out in public, and therefore communication is really hard. um I don't know
I
where
agree. I
it's,
agree.
it's
I would say we
interesting.
can all aim for a blend of directness plus diplomacy
Mhm.
and mix them together, and that will serve you well through the thousands of decisions you make from waking to sleeping every day. Thousands of decisions. Some are teeny tiny, like what shirt do I pull on in the morning, and then some are bigger, like do I tell this person that I love them? Do I ask for an apology? Do I go for this job? Do I negotiate this job offer? Then there's the bigger things. So when it comes right down to it, 4 cups of directness, 4 cups of respect for feelings, stir that up, and what you end up doing is coming up with on the level communication that is not fearful, but is also not condescending. And
Mhm.
it's something to aim for. I mean, this is an art form, and no one is going to do it exactly like anyone else. There's lots of room for experimentation.
Yeah.
How do you know how you're coming across, though? Please find a couple people you trust. You could even go to some people that you don't like so much, but you trust them, to be honest, and say, I have a homework assignment, right? From a book I'm reading or from an executive coach. And the homework assignment is, could you please tell me something you like about my communication and something you sometimes softens it a bit, that you sometimes think I could do better. And you're really fishing. So for those who are listening and not viewing, I'm reeling in a fish here to the right. I'm fishing for a piece of praise. Now I'm casting to the left. I'm fishing for a piece of criticism. It's a beautiful picture of where you are in time at this age, at 78, at 18, at 35, whatever your age is. And then the next trip around the sun, you have an actual mirror representation. You've seen what it's like or heard what it's like to communicate with you. Change what you want. Pass on the communication feedback that you don't think you can use.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. I'm thinking, okay, so I have kind of a personal question as it relates
Sure,
to
great.
my communication style. I often as it relates to hard conversations where I know that some sort of emotion is going to come up. And usually when it's an emotion that I'm scared of, it's either that I'm going to cry or that I'm angry.
Yeah.
And so I think that the question is how do I allow my emotions to be present? Should I allow my emotions to be present and tell this person or have this conversation with this person, whether it be
Yeah.
that I'm telling them how I feel, asking for something, or, giving
Yeah.
that compliment and giving that feedback. Um,
Yes. So I have a lot of clients that will say when they're angry, they cry.
mhm.
So they don't want to have the conflict conversation because they don't want to cry. What if we looked at crying as something that we could normalize? And when we're talking to the person, you could even say, you can see I care a lot about this. Obviously, I'm crying about it. I've been carrying it for a while, or it just touches me deeply. This has upset me. Please don't worry about that. I'll be fine, but I'm sincere. That's what's up with these tears. Like, I think I might attach a meaning to the tears, own them, and let them out.
Mm, yeah.
By the way, you might be a role model to others who then find it more acceptable to express emotion when they're communicating.
Yeah.
In a class today, in a 3-hour excelling as a leader and communicator, for about, I don't know, 20 supervisors, we went around the room and asked, as I said, we asked people, how'd the feedback challenge go for you? What was your favorite piece of praise and favorite piece of criticism? And one woman who has lost her husband recently shared something that she heard from him that really lifted her up about what an amazing mom she is to their kids. And I asked, why is that? And I understand why you picked his feedback, of course. Why is that so meaningful to you? Will you share with us? And I just stayed with her. And I think I was maybe more comfortable with the tears because I know that's a sign of genuine, authentic personhood showing up. But through the tears, brave woman, one of the few women in the room, she said, he made me want to be a better person, and I think I'm a better person because of him. And the tears, I'm grateful as I remember him. And we just took a moment, and I told her, our hearts are with you, and thanks so much for being brave. And then I went to the next person. So it wasn't all, let's say her name is Kim, it wasn't all the Kim show. We weren't all staring at her. And she gathered herself, and the next person began speaking. what if we normalized it? Because I don't think it's going to work for us to not have the conversation. That's not healthy. It's also not going to help to try to have the conversation, but prevent any emotion from showing up.
Yeah. Or
And when
kind
we're
of
angry, my
coddling.
voice gets louder, I get sharper,
Yeah.
but I can, oh man, if I could come back to my center and tell my loved one or the coworker or whoever the conflict is with, I'm frustrated and I know you can hear it, but I'm glad we're talking about this. Let's come back to statement of intention, because we're not going to be able to fake that we're not sad or happy or angry, etc.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
such a,
You make it, if it's okay with you, it's going to be more okay with others. And by the way, that person might then be inspired. They have something hard to say.
Mhm.
They might cry when they speak to someone about something. They just watched you role model how to do it without it being the end of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As there's,
To me, no worries about tears.
yeah. Thank you.
I
No,
mean,
it's just like,
personally, I might choose, I tried very hard as a corporate HR director for many years in construction, robotics, and warehousing, not to ever let them see me sweat and not to ever let them see me cry. And then in 2004, I left the properties and construction and warehousing industry, where I was a corporate HR director and training director, and male dominated industry, and I was one of the few women that was in management at that company. And it was my last day, and I came back from lunch and there was a bottle of wine on my chair without a note even, but I knew it was my friend Jeff, the IT manager, whose office was next to mine. And I know that was his way, quite the introvert, that was his way of maybe saying, Michelle, I'm going to miss you. And I just picked up the bottle of wine. And to this day, I still like to have a really big purse so I can carry, for example, a bottle of wine in it. And so I put the bottle of wine in my purse. I came back from lunch, saw that on the chair, knew who it was from, started to get choked up and cry, put the bottle of wine in my purse, went back out to the car, drove around and cried for a while, pulled myself together a little bit, then came back in. So I admit that I have also tried to prevent, especially men, from seeing me cry. But I think these days, if I was crying in front of any human, I would just tell them it means a lot to me.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. I want to be mindful of your time, so I'll
Yeah, how
keep
are we
these
doing?
last couple of
Oh gosh,
questions
that went
brief.
fast.
But now that this is, I know, can you believe it? Almost an hour. Now that this book is out and people have got their hands on it, and I know it was such a labor of love, and I'm so grateful that you put it together and you're sharing it with us. What are you working on? Like, what's next?
Yeah, every week, what I'm working on with my team of 10 based here in the Midwest is we're designing training related to communication skills for a company or a nonprofit or an academic institution or a government team. So we serve all kinds of teams, and they might want conflict management or presentation skills, really fun one to teach, business writing, giving, receiving feedback, managing stress, managing change, meaningful, motivating performance reviews, leadership skills. So my background is organizational psychology and human communication, like you. And so anything that fits in the space of humans communicating in the workplace, we love to custom design that. And then we also have several executive coaching clients per month. So we're always running personality assessment and then meeting with them one-on-one to design custom goal plans. So always writing, always teaching. Thank goodness the book is out. It definitely, people joke that it feels like having a kid, but I get that now. I
Yeah,
get that now.
you birthed
So
the
still
book.
writing. And I want to mention for our listeners that if they check out our website, there's a lot of things that are written and are free and written as tools for others, including a bunch of fun Coach's Corner questions from real life people like you and me who write in to say, oh gosh, anything about, how do I interview well, to give me some tips about public speaking, to how could my emails be more powerful and useful to others, customer service questions, things back to human communication in the workplace. Folks will find a lot of free tools at gladioconsulting.com, and can also sign up for our quarterly e-newsletter that I write along with help from my team. And we always include a music video because I'm a music nut, and it's called Breakdown, named after the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers song, because I just might be the biggest Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers fan you've ever met in real life.
Oh, I love
And I really
that.
respected and respect him as a communicator. He was a courageous communicator. So it's called Breakdown, and we would love to send that, always with links to what we're researching or tools we're designing. Truly, we just want to get some of these ideas out into the world for free to people who maybe don't work at a place that would bring trainers in.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for all of those
Sure.
amazing resources. And
Sure.
the website, say it again. Would you mind spelling?
Yeah.
'Cause
It's a French last name. I named this company after in memory of my parents. And I know that it's not an easy name to spell. It's GladioConsulting.com. GLADIEUX, like X-ray, consulting.com. My
Perfect.
nickname is actually Glad because of that last name, and I try to live up to it. I try to stay optimistic,
Yeah.
and remain glad for all the good things, even though there's communication challenges and I keep screwing up on the daily.
But you keep,
Usually more personally than professionally, but sometimes I feel like, Tessa, after a long day of communicating professionally, I know you teach yoga teacher trainings all weekend, as you said, you're speaking. It's hard for me then sometimes with family members, close friends, etc., to be my best as a communicator. I feel like I'm all used up as far as that goes. And that's when the self-care, right? A huge component to great communication is stress management.
yeah.
Again, something nobody else can do for you. Interesting. You have to
Absolutely.
find your own courage, find your own self-care.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a wonderful way to end, and it's so inspiring. And Michelle, thank you so much for
Oh
your
my
time.
gosh, thank you. Thank you for all the great work you do out in the world. And I encourage people to check out your beautiful website. And thanks for letting me be on your podcast.
Well, everyone, that concludes another amazing episode of Outside the Studio. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you learned something new, maybe remembered something old, maybe felt inspired to apply something to your life. You can hear my dog in the background. She's doing a little happy dance. So Daisy enjoyed it. Anyhow, I wanted to just pop in here to wrap us up to say a couple of things. Number one, I have such an amazing team that helps me put these podcasts together. Without them, I wouldn't, be able to bring these amazing conversations to you. So thank you to my producer, my director of creative services, my sound editor, my engineer, Consistency Media. Don't know what I would do without you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And the amazing creation and artistic musical genius, Drew Lovern. Thank you so much for putting together this music specifically for Outside the Studio. So unique to the show, only place you're ever going to hear it is right here. Thanks, you guys. You make my world go round. Stay well, everyone. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review, share on the socials, especially if it's a show that you think, hey, this could help somebody else. That's what this is all about, right? We're sharing information so that we're better, so that we're inspired, so that we're lifting each other up, and we're learning how to be in this world, living on this planet to the best of our ability, sharing information and inspiring one another. And that's my hope. That's my hope for the show. Take care.